Today, I'm going to explain a war action movie called Saving Private Ryan. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie opens with a family walking slowly and quietly through a cemetery in Normandy, France. They are led by the patriarch, who has tears in his eyes. When the elderly man reaches a specific grave, he falls to his knees and begins to sob, surrounded by his family. It's clear that the old man is a World War II veteran who has personally witnessed the horrors of war. The scene shifts to June 6, 1944, as Allied forces prepare to land on Omaha Beach in the Normandy invasion. Several landing crafts carry U.S. soldiers as part of this massive operation. The weather is bleak, with gray skies and rough waves, making many soldiers nauseous. However, their instructions are clear: eliminate the Nazi soldiers who have fortified the beach with strongholds, infamously referred to as murder holes. In one of these rafts, Captain John H. Miller of the 2nd Ranger Battalion prepares himself for battle. His hands shake as he nervously drinks from a water bottle, but he composes himself and gives his soldiers a last-minute pep talk. Soon after, the gates of the rafts open, and chaos ensues. German soldiers in bunkers fire relentlessly at the Americans. Many U.S. soldiers are killed before they can even swim to shore, and others drown as the Nazi offensive continues to take a heavy toll. However, Captain Miller reaches the shore, taking cover behind metal tank traps scattered across the beach. He is stunned by the overwhelming death and destruction around him. Soldiers cry for their mothers, and some are mutilated beyond recognition. Fortunately, a fellow soldier snaps Captain Miller back to his senses, and he orders the survivors to push forward toward the enemy fortifications. They slowly inch closer to the German lines while sustaining heavy damage. Thanks to their collective persistence, skilled snipers like Daniel Jackson, and a bit of luck, the Allied forces eventually reach the fortifications. After hours of grueling combat, they finally defeat the Nazis and take control of Omaha Beach. Meanwhile, back in the U.S., the Department of War receives grim news from the front. The Ryan family from Utah had sent 4 sons to serve in the military, but 3 have been killed in action. Their mother receives all 3 condolence letters from the office of the general on the same day. Her only surviving son, the youngest, Private James Francis Ryan, had landed at Normandy the night before the invasion. It is revealed that he is part of the 101st Airborne Division, and is currently listed as missing. In the general's office, there is a debate about whether to send a rescue mission for Private Ryan. Some officers argue that it would endanger more men, but the general ultimately decides to proceed with the mission, and Captain Miller is chosen to lead it. Within hours, the news reaches Omaha Beach, and a detachment team is formed. Captain Miller leads a team of 7 other soldiers, including an interpreter, Timothy Upham, who lacks combat experience. The group soon tracks Ryan to the town of Neuville and begins their journey. Along the way, they engage in a heated discussion about whether the mission makes sense. It's clear that not all of them believe they should risk their lives for one man. Upham, who is sensitive and empathetic, argues that Ryan's mother deserves to have at least one son return alive. Others dismiss this argument, pointing out that they all have families waiting for them too. Despite these tensions, the group has good camaraderie, and they all respect their captain. Miller is intelligent, has a sharp sense of humor, and his leadership helps them stay focused on their mission. A few hours later, they reach the outskirts of Neuville under heavy rain. The town is devastated, and a unit of American soldiers is under siege from German snipers. Captain Miller inquires about Private James Ryan, but the commanding officer isn't even sure if anyone by that name is in his unit. To move forward, Captain Miller and his team will now have to clear out the German soldiers in the town.
Gentlemen, up front!
They slowly make their way through, trying to avoid any contact with the enemy. Their advance comes to a sudden halt when they encounter a German family hiding in a ruined building. Upham translates their desperate pleas to take their young children to safety. Captain Miller points out that taking the kids would be unwise, as they are moving through a dangerous battlefield. However, one of the team members, Adrian Caparzo, is deeply moved and decides to take the family's daughter, revealing that the little girl reminds him of his niece. Enraged, Horvath yells at him and takes the girl away, but before he can return her to her family, a German sniper shoots Caparzo. As Caparzo lies bleeding in the open field, the entire group takes cover. U.S. sniper Daniel Jackson quickly identifies the enemy's location and sneaks to a nearby pile of rubble. As the German sniper scans for more targets, Jackson shoots him between the eyes, eliminating the threat. After this skirmish, Caparzo succumbs to his injuries, and the German girl is returned to her family. Captain Miller's men, particularly Trooper Stanley Mellish, grow resentful of the mission, as Caparzo was a close friend and lost his life for what feels like a futile cause. Shortly afterward, the group clears the area of any remaining Nazi soldiers and moves deeper into town. Soon finding another troop of U.S. soldiers. Captain Miller asks the commanding officer if he has any knowledge of Private Ryan, and the officer confirms that there is a soldier by that name in his unit. Private James Ryan is then called to meet the group. With a heavy heart, Captain Miller informs him that all of his brothers have died. Ryan immediately breaks down and asks how it happened. Miller explains that they were killed in action, but Ryan insists this is impossible, as his brothers are still in school. This revelation makes Captain Miller realize they have the wrong person. Although he shares the same name, this soldier has a different middle name and different siblings. This means the group must push further into the battle zone to complete their mission, and they have unwittingly given this young soldier a terrible shock.
It can't be, my brother's still in grammar school.
Soon, they meet an injured soldier from the 101st Airborne Division who tells them that their division was dropped near a village called Verville. However, they came under heavy fire shortly after landing, and he became separated from his unit. Miller's group understands they must move again. That night, they take shelter in an abandoned church nearby. Everyone except Sniper Jackson stays awake, struggling to rest. During this time, Sergeant Horvath notices Captain Miller's hands shaking involuntarily and asks him about it. Miller reveals that it started when they disembarked at Omaha Beach and comes and goes. It's clear that the two men are unaware that Miller is showing early signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. The conversation also hints that Miller is not entirely committed to the mission, but he rationalizes that for every man lost, he saves 10 more. Meanwhile, the rest of the group speculates about Captain Miller's past. No one knows where he came from or what he did before the war. Upham tries to ask him about his life, but the captain coyly says he'll reveal it when the time is right. The group sets aside their worries and finally gets some much-needed rest for the night. In the morning, they resume their search for Ryan and soon stumble upon another American troop camped around the wreckage of a crashed aircraft. This troop also doesn't know where Ryan is, but the commanding officer shares his own war story. He explains that he was piloting a fighter jet reinforced with extra steel plates to protect a high-ranking officer on board. Unfortunately, he only discovered this added weight too late, making the plane difficult to control, and it crashed, killing nearly everyone on board, including the general they were trying to protect. Captain Miller can't help but note the parallel between the officer's story and his mission. Both involved risking many lives to save one. In his case, however, they're trying to save Private Ryan. Moments later, the group heads to a field where a battalion of U.S. soldiers is resting. Captain Miller begins asking around while his men sort through the dog tags of fallen soldiers. Shortly after, they finally meet someone who served in the same division as Ryan.
Yeah, of course I know him, sir.
Does he know where he is?
The soldier explains that he, Ryan, and a few others missed their drop zone by about 20 miles. They eventually encountered a U.S. Army colonel who gathered some soldiers, including Ryan, to guard a bridge in a village called Ramel. Miller is relieved to hear this, as he finally has a solid lead on his target. Following this, he gathers his men and outlines their next course of action. They will head to Ramel, which lies on the banks of the Murderette River. He knows that this village holds a crucial bridge, an important gateway to Paris, and that both the Allied forces and the Germans would fight tooth and nail to control this strategic position. As Miller explains the plan, his hands begin to tremble again. His men notice and are clearly concerned, but no one mentions it, and Miller pretends that everything is normal. Afterward, the group pushes deeper into Normandy, crossing vast grasslands that are mostly empty. War, however, is never gentle, and soon they come across the bodies of several fallen Allied soldiers. Miller and his men immediately take cover and scan the area. The captain spots a group of German soldiers camped near a radar station and decides they need to neutralize them. The men aren't keen on Miller's plan and suggest they could bypass the radar, but Miller insists. The Germans have captured an American machine gun, and he argues that if they don't eliminate the enemies now, other Allied troops following them could be ambushed. Despite his men's reluctance, Miller proceeds with his plan. After an intense battle, the group gains the upper hand on the Germans, surrounding them from three sides. Their victory, however, comes at a high cost, as Irwin Wade, the field medic, is shot during the skirmish. The team tries everything they can to save him, but their efforts are in vain, and Wade slowly bleeds to death. This brings the total casualties on this mission to 2, leaving the men feeling angry and vengeful. They vent their frustration on a German paratrooper who surrenders. The men are prepared to kill him on the spot, but Upham interjects, arguing that it wouldn't be right. He believes they should adhere to the rules of war, especially when dealing with a surrendered enemy. At first no one listens to him, incensed by the loss of their comrade, but they eventually relent as the prisoner grovels and begs for mercy.
This is not right.
You can help me with a bond.
The German soldier tries to curry favor with the Americans by professing his love for the U.S., naming Hollywood celebrities, using American slang, and even singing the American anthem. Despite this, Miller firmly grabs the prisoner by the collar, blindfolds him, and instructs him to walk 1,000 steps and surrender himself to the first Allied patrol he finds. This decision, however, is very unpopular with the group. Mellish, who lost his close friend Caparso earlier, cannot believe they're letting the prisoner go after all that the German soldiers have done. This act of mercy toward a Nazi soldier is especially painful for Mellish, who is Jewish, and he is so upset that he contemplates abandoning the mission. Miller's second-in-command, Horvath, forbids anyone from leaving and even threatens to shoot anyone who disobeys orders.
Fall in! You gonna shoot me over, Ryan?
No, I'm gonna shoot you because I don't like you.
Sir, listen. So if he wants to go, just let him go. You gonna shoot me? Are you letting this happen?
In the next scene, Miller decides to bring the team back together by finally revealing details about his past. The soldiers had all placed bets on who would be the first to uncover the captain's background. No one knew anything about Miller or what he did before becoming an officer. But today Miller shares that he used to be a school teacher and baseball coach before the war. He explains that, in the past, most people could easily tell what he did for a living. Now, however, no one could look at him and even guess that he used to teach. He worries that he's changed so much that his own wife wouldn't recognize him. He ends his speech by telling his men that they're free to leave the mission if they want, but for him, each man he has killed has only distanced him further from home. This stirring speech is enough to re-inspire the group, and they get back on track. Hours later, they finally reach Rommel, where Miller meets a detachment of soldiers, among them the correct Private James Francis Ryan. The captain informs Ryan about his brother's deaths, and tells him that he is to be airlifted and sent home. To his surprise, Private Ryan responds that he doesn't want to go back. He is devastated by the loss of his brothers but doesn't feel right abandoning his post and going home. He adds that his fellow soldiers are the only brothers he has left, so he refuses to desert them. Instead, he's determined to stay at his post and defend the bridge until additional support arrives. This leaves Captain Miller at a crossroads, as he now has no mission to follow. However, Horvath believes they should stay back with Ryan's troop and ensure he makes it out alive. Miller agrees and assumes the role of commanding officer of the troop at Rommel. The Americans then prepare to defend the bridge over the Murderette River against an impending German siege. As they wait for battle, the troops gather to share stories. Captain Miller and Ryan stand off to the side, talking about their personal lives. Suddenly, one of the American scouts spots incoming enemy troops, and everyone quickly takes their positions. It's time for battle. Soon after, the German troops arrive with an armored tank, prepared to destroy anything in their path. The U.S. troops, though undermanned and under-equipped, put up a strong fight with sticky bombs and machine guns. Both sides suffer heavy losses, and Sniper Jackson takes out several enemy soldiers. However, as the battle intensifies, the Germans' numerical superiority proves overwhelming. In a shocking twist, the Nazi soldier Miller had spared at the radar station appears in the battle and stabs Mellish to death while Upham, paralyzed with fear, looks on. Jackson and Horvath are also taken down by the German tank, leaving only 2 soldiers from the original group, Captain Miller and Richard Reiben. Private Ryan also manages to survive in this deadly battle. As the hours pass, the German assault seems relentless. In a cruel turn of events, the Nazi soldier Miller spared earlier ends up shooting the captain. This time, Upham, who has been frozen with fear until now, grabs a gun and confronts the Nazi soldier. The enemy soldier surrenders once again, confident that Upham won't kill an unarmed man. However, Upham has now seen firsthand the hard choices soldiers must make on the battlefield, so he pulls the trigger and kills him. By this point, the German troops have advanced right up to the bridge. Captain Miller, gravely wounded, lies on the ground, taking his last breaths as Ryan watches nearby. Their defeat seems imminent, but suddenly, 2 U.S. Air Force planes swoop down from the skies. The air support turns the tide of the battle, obliterating the German tanks and forces in a matter of moments. In the aftermath, Captain Miller takes his final breath in the presence of Reiben and Private Ryan. Miller instructs Ryan to earn this, to live a life worthy of the sacrifices made for him, before quietly passing away. The movie then circles back to the first scene, revealing that the old man is James Ryan, and the grave he is visiting belongs to Captain John Miller. Ryan expresses that he still remembers the sacrifice Miller made for him, and hopes he has lived a life worthy of it. Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.